All right, what is up, guys? Welcome to another live stream Q&A here on Budding Watch Enthusiast. If you're watching this later on YouTube, I try to do these about once a month, it seems like, is the pace now that we're kind of going along. So again, I usually let you know the morning of. If you have questions, but you can't make the live stream, but you still want me to answer the questions during the live stream, if you follow me on Instagram, at Budding Watch Enthusiast, I usually put up a story where you guys can submit questions in there as well. So got a couple of things to talk about today. I wanted to talk about the new Timex S1. I wanted to talk about the couple questions that I got on Instagram from folks that submitted questions. We'll talk about picking watches because that ties into my wristwatch check today. And then as you guys are following along in the chat, say what's up, say hello, and if you guys have questions, if you guys want to talk about some stuff, we will certainly discuss that as well. One bit of housekeeping first. You guys know if you follow me on Instagram, but I've actually started a new podcast. It's on the Watch With Us network with Ricardo from Watch With Us. We're calling it Bearded Time. I can't imagine why. I can't imagine how that name is in any way relevant to the content of that podcast. But so right now, 2 episodes are up. So if you go to the Watch With Us YouTube channel, you can watch the first 2 episodes now. I know episode 1 is up on Apple Podcasts also. So if you follow, again, it's all on the Watch With Us channel. So if you have the Watch With Us podcast feed, if you subscribe to Watch With Us on YouTube, you can check out Bearded Time. Highly recommended. First 2 episodes I think are really good so far. And that's something that we're doing every single week. So I see a bunch of you guys in here already. As you're coming in, make sure to go down to the chat, say hello, say what's up. Let me know what is on your wrist tonight. We'll talk about real quick what's on my wrist. My wristwatch check is the Manta SkyQuest, which I've been wearing a ton lately. So the first topic I wanted to talk about is how to pick watches out of my watch box. So like I mentioned, I've been wearing the SkyQuest a fair amount for the past couple of days. And the reason why I've been wearing it, one, because it's matching whatever outfit I'm wearing. Blue dial goes with a lot of stuff. I wear a lot of blues anyway, a lot of reds. They mesh nicely. It's really good. But the other reason I've been picking it out is because it's wound. So I don't know how you guys do it. I know when I first started collecting watches, I used to keep all of my watches wound pretty much all the time. Like I would, like once a night, like before going to bed, in my office where my watch box is right behind me, I would always pop it open. I would always, just top them off real quick because they're all running, so that I would always have, my whole pick of watches in front of me. I could pick whatever watch I wanted. I knew it would be running. I wouldn't have to set the time, set it or anything like that. And a couple months in, as you can imagine, that got old really quick. And I do my best to rotate watches. Like I don't like wearing the same watch multiple days in a row. I'm the kind of guy that likes picking a different watch every time that I go into the watch box. But lately, for some reason, like for the past few weeks, I've really just been grabbing what's running. Like I'll sit there and I'll look and I'll say, okay, I could do a couple different watches today, depending on what outfit I'm wearing and what I want to do with. But then ultimately I end up defaulting to whatever's running and accurate that I don't have to set. And that's really weird for me. I was curious to know if you guys do the same thing or if you guys keep your stuff wound all the time, because I feel like the effort's just not there to keep everything set. And then if I'm running behind in the morning, especially, and I'm not a morning person, like I'm always like on the bleeding edge of being on time, being late to work. So I usually just end up picking up whatever is set and not worrying about that later. So that's my take on that. Again, curious to hear your guys' thoughts. So a couple of you guys saying hey in the chat. Tennessee Mike, what's up, man? Wearing the Jade Monster. Awesome. My wife has one of those as well. I think that's probably her favorite watch at this point. My wife, for those of you guys that have been following the channel for a long time, is a huge aficionado of giant dive watches. Not that the Monster is a giant watch by my means, but she just loves big dive watches. So she loves the Monster, wears it all the time. Reking 3, what's up, man? Glycine Combat Sub. I see those all the time. Like I said, I came this close to buying one a few months ago, or not buying one, trading for one with somebody else a couple months ago. Someone offered me the GoldenEye one, and I almost did it. I don't remember why I didn't do it, because it was for a watch that I was having trouble selling, but I eventually sold that watch on anyway. Andy in the chat says hello. He says you do that frequently as well. Watches that are wound or just a quartz watch for the day. And that's the thing. Like, I don't have any quartz watches aside from my digital watches. Like, those are the only ones that I have that are quartz. So yeah, it's usually whatever automatic just happens to be going. And that's another thing too. So like, power reserve is usually one of those features that most people don't put a lot of stock in or a lot of investment in. And for me, like, if I'm deciding between two watches, power reserve can sometimes be important, just because I know I don't have to sit there and keep it wound and keep it going all the time, for sure. So yeah, like I said, it's very, very weird thing that I've just noticed that's changed. One of the things that's changed in my experience so far, collecting watches. Again, Nate says, what's up? Have a San Martin 62 Mas homage. Let's see, Boulder Expedition version 2. Keep coming back to picking one up. They'll have something off in their pre-Black Friday deal. Yeah, Boulder apparently runs pretty decent sales. I know that I think the Globetrotter is up on sale on their website right now for like $200 off. And the Expedition, I'm sure, will go on sale at some point as well. Probably not for that steep of a discount. But I would expect that to go on sale. I've reviewed both the Globetrotter and the Expedition, so if you've not seen those, definitely check those out. I enjoyed both watches. Boulder makes really excellent stuff, and getting those on a pretty good deal is something that if you'd like to do, if you've been interested in checking out their watches, check them out. Nate says excellent reviews on both. Thank you, man. Really appreciate that. And again, guys, in the chat, if you have stuff that you want to discuss, definitely let me know in the chat, because like I said, I have a couple topics lined up that I want to talk about, but then usually I end up taking stuff from the chat and it kind of just goes on from there. Gimmo Holiday says hello from the Netherlands. What's up? Wearing the vintage 65 Estima hand winder. Awesome. What is going on? The Netherlands actually the place of my ancestors, because my last name is Van Vut, so a very Dutch name. And both my grandparents on my dad's side are from Holland as well. Not had a chance to go. I really would like to visit over there one day, because I've heard it's actually really cool. So let's see. The other thing I want to talk about, the first big one, it actually kind of ties in with my wristwatch check as well. So Ricardo from Watch With Us answered on the Instagram story. He came up with a question for us here today. And he said that I seem to be a GMT junkie, guilty as charged. What would my perfect GMT watch look like? So I saw that question earlier today. I've been thinking about it a little bit. So kind of perfect GMT. The SkyQuest is kind of a good place to start on that, because it has some of the features that I really like. So I love a two-tone dial. So I have my Christopher Ward C65. It's got the Pepsi bezel. I think the two-tone nature of the bezel, I said two-tone dial, I meant bezel. The two-tone bezel really helps with that. I think it really helps with orientation. At a quick glance, you can see, what time it is and the other times and that you're tracking. So I would definitely pick two-tone bezel. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Pepsi, even though I think that's probably the most legible version of a two-tone bezel. I'm fine with like a Batman as well, or you can kind of mix it up color-wise. The feature from the SkyQuest that I really like is the SkyQuest has a chapter ring on the dial, or outside of the dial, I should say, that has the odd numbered time zones on it. So you have the bezel that has the even number time zones, and I'll hold that up so you guys can kind of see. But then you have the chapter ring on the inside that has the odd number time zones that are offset. The reason that that's really helpful is because it makes it super easy to track 3 time zones at the same time. So you have your local time that the watch is set to, and then the GMT hand can track 2 other time zones. And it's just a little bit easier to see at a glance. Like when I'm wearing my C65, I don't have it set for a second time zone. I just have it set for UTC, and I just leave the bezel in the regular position that it's supposed to be in. But with the SkyQuest, I do have it set for 2 different time zones, just because that chapter ring with the odd numbers make it a little bit easier to read time zones at a quick glance. So I think that's super useful. I haven't seen any other watch that I've seen do it. I'm sure there are other ones out there, but just from my personal experience, I've never seen another GMT watch that has a chapter ring on the inside of the watch that has the odd numbers kind of offset with the even numbers. The Globetrotter from Boulder, I know, had a second even numbered chapter ring running along the inside, and that's helpful for that standpoint as well. So I would definitely have numerals on a chapter ring inside the watch for my Perfect GMT. Those are really the only two like necessary features. The rest of it, sports watch case, mostly brush finish because I like brushed finish better than polished finish. That's just my personal preference. It's got to look good on a bracelet and a leather strap. I think that's a big qualification for me. Most people would say, high water resistance, as long as it's 150 meters. I'm pretty good there as well. Yeah, it really just comes down to the bezel and the chapter ring for me that kind of makes my perfect GMT watch. So kind of a hybrid, I guess, of the typical Pepsi style bezels combined with the chapter ring that the Manta SkyQuest has. And I think that's perfect for me. So I'd love to see that at some point. I'd like to see Manta do the SkyQuest, but with a two-tone bezel. I think that might actually look really cool because I know that the black one has a ceramic bezel, so you could easily do that if they wanted to. Gitmo says no wooden shoes nailed on the wall. No, that was my father that had that. My father definitely had a lot of clogs nailed up on the wall for decoration at his house, but I do not own any, sadly. Loamforge says we're talking about picking up watches that are already wound. Do what he does: pick out a watch in the morning, wind it, or do the Seiko shake in the night before, and it's all sorted, no drama. That's actually a really good idea, man. I don't know why I didn't even think about this. Sorted out the night before. I think the reason why is because I never know on a daily basis, like beforehand, which watch I'm going to wear the next day, because I don't know what clothes I'm going to wear the next day. So I typically match my watch to typically whatever shirt I'm wearing that day. So because I don't know, that's why I can't set it the night before. But if I think about that in the future, that's something I'll definitely do, because it's a lot easier to do at night, obviously, and just have it ready to rock and roll than it is to do in the morning when you're rushing around. And for me, it's also getting the boy ready for school, making sure he catches his bus, and then running out the door, and everything's done in a very time fashion there. AS in the chat says, what do you think of the Grand Seiko high beat GMTs? So I don't know that I've seen the high beat one. So funny you mentioned Grand Seiko, because the watch that I'm saving for right now is a Grand Seiko 9F quartz, and I'm probably going to get the GMT version of that. I'm pretty sure. So I just Googled the high beat GMTs. I wanted to check those out as well. I'm not typically a fan of the Grand. Oh my God, it's a YouTube video. That was not what I was looking for. I was looking to get an article. So for the Grand Seiko watches, I'm not a big fan of the automatic movements from them. Like if I'm going to get a Grand Seiko, I either want a 9F quartz or I want to get a spring drive. And I don't have the money, and I'm not going to save up the money to pick up a spring drive watch. So the 9F quartz is much more in my wheelhouse right now. So I went to the Grand Seiko website while we're talking here. So basically what I'm seeing is that they did the GMT. It comes in like a really heavy duty case with blue ceramic, which is wild looking, pretty slick looking case. It does have the dial that I like. So though I don't want the high beat movement, that pattern, like Grand Seiko, I think it's like the 25th anniversary, watch for the high beat movement, is one of my favorite dials that I've ever seen. Like I've seen that watch in person. It looks amazing. I love the three-hander version of that one. I don't think it works as well with the GMT, just because, like I said, the case almost doesn't match the rest of the watch. It looks like the ceramic case just looks bizarre. The other thing I don't like about this one specifically is just because the thing that's the coolest about Grand Seiko is the finishing on the watch. And I think having that ceramic case, you kind of deprive yourself of one of the best reasons to get a Grand Seiko. Like it still has some polished parts on the links and like where the lugs come down to meet the bracelet. Or actually, that's all bracelet. Come to think of it, when I'm looking at it, so you still get some polishing on the bracelet. But for me, like that Zaratsu polishing on those Grand Seiko cases, like that's one of the reasons to get a Grand Seiko. So not having that is a little bit of a takeaway, even though, like I said, it's using the dial that is my absolute favorite Grand Seiko dial. And I really like the rotor that they use as well, that oscillating kind of weight that they have, that's, you know, completely circular round rotor. Very cool. And AS says, you have the 9F GMT. I can't decide which one I want. I think I really do like that limited, like the 5-star one that has the yellow and black. The problem is that I don't feel like that I would ever wear it that much because the coloring is the weird one. Says he has the blue one, and that's the other problem too. So like, I already have the Sky Quest, and that blue 9F Quartz GMT, to me looks very similar to this. And I hate having overlap in my collection. Like, I'm not a big fan of having a lot of the same model watches in different colors, and I'm not a fan of having like a lot of the same, same styles of watches and looking there. And then it says the black is stunning, but it's a bit close to the Explorer 2. A friend of mine actually has the black version, and I haven't gotten to see it in person yet. So I know I'm going to get together with him probably pretty soon, and I'm sure I'll get to check it out then. That's probably where I'm going to lean. And it does look very close to the Explorer 2. I absolutely agree with you on that, but it's also different than anything else that's in my collection right now. So that's probably where I'm going to go. But it's the yellow and black is really nice. And you say it's cool, but it's not very wearable. That is the only thing. That's the only thing that I'm worried about, is I feel like that if I'm wearing it, even with something that's like business casual, it might feel like it's out of place. Or if I'm wearing it like in the wintertime, it almost feels like it doesn't belong. But I also really like the dial on that one too. Like, it has that patterned textured dial with the GS9F running across it. I think it's a badass looking watch. It's also the hardest one to find just because it's limited edition as well. So that might also cost a little bit more as we go. Tennessee Mike says, agree on the Grand Seiko case finishing. Yeah, like I said, I think for me, that's almost the best reason to get a Grand Seiko, just because the finishing on those watches is, I would rival it for watches that cost, 5-10 times as much as a lot of those Grand Seiko watches do. Like, you get that same finishing in the 9F Quartz watches as you do on like the $6,000-$8,000 spring drive watches. And I think that's a lot of great value. Honolulu Watch, what's up, man? Says, sorry for the late arrival. Great stuff. Been a fan since the Sal Torstei review. Keep it up. Thank you very much, man. I do see you commenting on the videos. Really appreciate it. Steven, hello. Any more of the 2 time zones, and I get the keys to my TARDIS. I'm not a Doctor Who fan, so that reference is completely lost on me. And Steven's also, I guess, asking Tennessee Mike if he ordered a G-Shock yet. I can't. I have not. I've never ordered a G-Shock. Always been interested, but I can never find one that really has spoken to me yet. So I have not. Never picked up the G-Shock S. AS says that the 9S have a beautiful thinness as well, 12 millimeter thickness, and the high beat GMT is 14.5 millimeters thick. So it's funny. It's funny you mentioned the thinness of watches. I'm finding more and more that thinness, or how thick the watch is quickly becoming like a selling point / deal breaker for me, depending on the style of watch. Like, there's certain watches that you can't, and if you hear in the background, my son is trying to join us for the podcast today. He's having fun out in the hallway there. So what I'm finding, and again, like I was saying, there's some watches that you can't get away from it being a thick watch, like any chronograph, for example. Like, if it's a chronograph, you can expect that it's probably, unless it's manual wind only, you probably should expect at least 13 millimeters of thickness, if not more, especially if it's a mechanical chronograph. So I understand that you can't get away with that, but with any just regular, like a 3-hander or time telling watch that doesn't have any kind of complication like that, I'm really finding that I'm getting turned off from a lot of watches, even divers, like even sports watches that are 14 millimeters thick or more. Like anything that's 14 plus is kind of turning me off. I'll give you a fantastic example, and I feel like I'm being a little unfair because I haven't actually held one of these watches in person. But the Astor and Banks just released their Sea Ranger watch recently, and I remember when they introduced that watch at Worn and Wound San Francisco, I saw it on Instagram, and I was immediately like, "Whoa!" Like this watch looks amazing. It's got a fantastic dial. It's using the same case, like it's using like the Seamaster 300 case with the recessed crown, which I love. Like I adore that case. I think it's fantastic. Looked amazing. And then a friend of mine, Mike Scott Watches, who does reviews on the Time Bum blog, he actually got one in to review. I know that I remember we were talking about it, and he's like, "Oh, this is a big, thick boy," and I'm like, "Really? Like, it doesn't seem like it would be super thick." And he's like, "No, it's really, really thick." Like he sent me a picture of the watch from a side profile, and he wasn't kidding. Like the bezel on that thing is super tall, and I think it's a shade over 14 millimeters thick, if I'm not mistaken. And when I saw that, like my enthusiasm for the watch dipped tremendously. Like just seeing how thick that was and a little out of proportion it seemed to be, really kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit as far as that watch goes, for sure. On the opposite end of the spectrum, one of the other things I'm going to talk about this week is watches that are unattainable and how they can be really tempting. So I've really had my eyes on the EC Andersson Calypso Sport. EC Andersson's a micro brand company. I had never heard of them until like 3 weeks ago. Ricardo from Watch With Us picked up an Arctic Calypso Sport. I can never remember the model name from them. Put on Instagram, fell in love immediately. I was like, holy crap, that thing looks amazing. And in researching it and kind of like searching around for one, it's a sub 10 millimeter thick watch. Like, and for some reason, when I saw that, I'm just like, oh man, now that watch is even better to me now in my eyes with that thinness that it has going on. So it's just funny how as you collect and as you learn more about watches and as you get more watches and as your tastes change, it's funny what becomes important to you and what stuff that might have been important in the past just kind of falls by the wayside. And for me, watch thickness it becomes more important as we go along. And it started, partially with the NTH. When I bought the Nakin, the Nakin's like 11 millimeters thick for a watch that has a Miyota 9015 in it. That's impressively thin. And I'm finding more and more that I tend to be leaning more towards watches that have a thinness. And part of it for me also is the fact that in my eyes, like having a watch that is relatively thin compared to other watches in its class, I think also kind of shows a keen eye for your design prowess with watches as well. And also for the factory too, like, especially when you're talking about micro brands, a lot of that is coming into play with how good the factory is also in being able to create the product that you want to. And I know in talking to Chris Vale, who runs NTH, like I've heard the stories from him about all the crap he had to go through to get the Nakin down to 11 millimeters thick. And it was such a huge back and forth process with the factory to make that happen. So yeah, watch thinness has turned into one of those things that is really important to me for some reason. And it's to the point now, if a watch is like super thick, I'm probably not interested. Again, 14 millimeters and up, unless it's a chronograph, I'm probably walking on by and not paying attention. AS in the chat says, totally agree. I find the thinness to be one of the key features for refinement. Look at Rolex or even Monta. Yeah, Monta, this one, even with this big chunky bezel on it, is like 12 millimeters. And it wears perfectly. And I think that's really important. Yeah, that EC Andersson, guys. I don't know if you guys have seen EC Andersson before. So they're a small micro brand based in Sweden. And I never heard of them before a couple weeks ago. Apparently they've only had a couple watches come out so far, but they make all their stuff in like super limited runs, like super limited even for micro brands. Like micro brands are already kind of limited as it is, but I think EC Andersson, like their production runs on all of their models that have come out so far is like under 100. And so I saw this, the Calypso Sport, or the Arctic Calypso Sport, the white dial version. It looked amazing. And if you guys have followed the channel for a long time, you know I don't like white dialed watches. It's not my thing. But even that watch, I was like, holy crap, this thing looks incredible. Did some research. The watch is engineered really well designed. It's got a Miyota 9015, but they regulate the movement to be within like 4 seconds per day off, which is for a 90-15 is incredible, unless you happen to get super lucky out of the box. Finishing on the watch looks immaculate. And then they have the black dial version, which I like even more because it has this dial that has their logo kind of printed on the dial in much the same way that 9F Quartz 5-star edition kind of has it as well. And they even have like the Rolex feature where the rehaut inside of the watch has their logo engraved in it going all the way around, kind of like Rolex style as well. Really cool looking watch. For what you're getting, they're actually priced really well. Like I think the watches, even on a bracelet, are sub $900. The problem is that you can't find them because they have these super small production runs. They sell out super fast. Everyone that gets one, I guess, kind of knows what's up with them. Like they kind of know the value that the brand delivers. And so you can't see them. No one's ever sold one on Reddit. In the past couple months, there's been a handful that's gone up on eBay. There's been a handful that have been sold on Watch You Seek. And other than that, they're gone. So it's probably a good thing because, again, I'm still trying to save up for this Grand Seiko. But, man, that watch has just really kind of been the object of my affection lately. I mean, if you guys have any watches you've been chasing, I'm super curious to know. Let me know in the chat down below if you guys are on anything or if you have anything on like your Christmas list that you plan on picking up later on. So the other question that I got from Instagram came from my buddy Johnny. He asked me, when is our next get together going to be? So I'm not going to answer that question on here, obviously, but the reason that I brought it up is because I just want to remind you guys, and I've talked about this before, I've done videos on this before, but if you are not kind of like socializing with other watch nerds, I guess, in some way, shape, or form, I highly recommend it. I got to tell you that going to watch fairs, going to meetups, engaging more in forums and stuff like that has just really made this hobby that much more interesting and exciting for me. It's one of the reasons that I really also enjoy doing these live chats once a month with you guys, because again, it's a chance to talk to you guys in real time. As you guys are watching in the chat here, and of course, a lot of you guys I see in the comments on the videos as well, and I try to discuss with you there. But I'm telling you guys, if you don't engage with folks in the watch community, highly recommend it. Obviously, not every place is great, and there's assholes out there just like there is in any walk of life, essentially. But again, highly recommend if you can do that. Even just through Reddit or different Facebook groups, that kind of thing. Doing this stuff as well, because it's made the hobby, it's made it that much more enjoyable for me. And I would imagine that a lot of you guys have the same problem that I do, where you are the only person that that is as nerdy into this hobby as you are. Like, you don't have anyone that's just kind of in your family or in your circle of friends already that's super nerdy about this. You might, if you do, very lucky you are. But I would say for probably the majority of us, that's kind of not the case. So real quick, AS says he's been torn between a Black Bay chronograph and an Omega Planet Ocean 39.5 millimeter. What do I think? You're going to get a dramatic pause with the sip first. Depends on the Planet Ocean. So generally, Speedmaster Pros are not my forte. And I really like what Tudor is doing right now as well. I think the Black Bay chronograph is a fantastic looking watch. But then again, there's some like if you're going to get the Planet Ocean, and I don't know if like the orange one, for example, comes in 39.5 millimeter. That would be my pick for a Planet Ocean. That's pretty much the only one I like. Omega sports watches are just a little too, and I mean like the Seamaster Pros, they're just a little too bold for me. Like, I like something that's a little bit more understated personally. So if you give me a choice between a Tudor and an Omega, I'm always going to go with the Tudor more often than not. I will say my personal opinion for the Black Bay chronograph would be the steel bezel. Like that's the way I would go personally. I wouldn't do the black bezel. I would definitely do the gray steel bezel. I think that's the best look for that specific watch in my eyes. Steven says, my only GMT, at least for now, is a quartz 2 time zone, 515 24-hour movement Harding Pilot with a fixed plain bezel and alpinist hands wanting to give away. Got me interested in GMTs though. I don't know what it is about GMTs that I'm super obsessed with. Like and it's funny because I don't really travel that much. Like I'm only on a plane maybe twice a year, if that, like usually once a year. I don't have any real need to track 2 time zones. Like I don't have a ton of family that lives in other parts of the world that I speak with on that regular of a basis that I need to know what time it is where they are. But for some reason, I'm just enamored by the design of GMT. I think that I just really enjoy the utility of a GMT watch. This has become the GMT video kind of inadvertently, but I just think I enjoy the utility of a GMT, just the fact that how simplistic the design is and how easy it is to do what might be a more complicated function at first glance. Nate says he's hunting for a field type watch with a dive bezel type watch, hence the Expedition. Timex has the Navi XL sold out. Astern Banks has one, but a 12-hour bezel. Yeah, I was just talking about the Astern Banks, the Sea Ranger. Like I said, if it wasn't for the thickness, I would be all over that watch. Like I think the design of the watch, as far as just the aesthetics, is incredible. And if you're okay with having that tall of a watch, I think that fits the bill perfectly. It's a fantastic looking watch. It's a really good value, I think, for what's inside of it. So I would certainly recommend that. You may want to also keep an eye out for the Notice sector dial. Now, I know the sector dial, they're coming out with a more traditional field watch, and they're coming out with a dive version of the sector. But I've seen both. They haven't released pictures yet, but I've seen both watches in prototype form, at least. And I think the sector diver might still be able to get away as kind of a field watch as well. So maybe that might be something. I know they're going to be releasing it soon, probably sometime this month. So maybe keep an eye on Notice and see if that's something that might be interesting for you as well. And he also says, have you checked out Fair's GMT models? He thinks they're amazing. The thing that Fair came out with that was super amazing, and me and Ricardo talked about it on Bearded Time, so I won't go too deep into it here. The new Fair World Timers are one of the most incredible small brand watches that I've ever seen. So if you guys haven't seen those yet, highly recommend going over to Fair's website, checking out the new World Timers that they put out. Honolulu Watch says someone who flies a lot. His grail is a birth year Rolex Coke, unique GMT, not as common as the Pepsi scheme, and the colors allow it to work on the weekend but blend in at the office. Yeah, Coke. I don't see a lot of people with the Coke bezel. I know my friend Gianni, I think, still has his, mostly because it's AC Milan colored. But yeah, the Coke bezel ones you definitely don't see nearly as much as the Pepsis. So before we get too far in the weeds, the last thing that I definitely wanted to bring up and talk about this week was the Timex S1 that they just released this week as well. So Timex has been on a bit of a roll lately. They've been kind of crushing it. Now, everyone is losing their mind over the Timex Q. And I've got to tell you, I hate the Timex Q. I think the Timex Q is not all that it's cracked up to be in my eyes. The thing that it has that drives me insane is that it's not a GMT watch, but it has a GMT bezel on the watch. But it's not a 24-hour GMT bezel, because why would it have to be? It's 12-hour GMT bezel. And so you're going to put a poor man's GMT on it. That's fine. No problem with that. But it's two-tone. It doesn't have to be two-tone. The whole point of the two-tone bezel is so that you can easily tell the difference between day and night. But if you don't have an actual 24-hour GMT hand, then that function is useless. So it doesn't need to be a two-tone bezel. I understand that the Q is a historical reference, so I'm not, I can't throw that much shade at it. It's never caught my eye. Everyone loves it. I'm just like, whatever. I don't even care. The Timex S1, on the other hand, holy crap. Like this is a fantastic looking watch. And here's the thing, it's super simple. So if you guys haven't seen the S1, either go to their website or go to Timex's Instagram and check it out. Because this thing looks, for what it is, for a very simple kind of like dress like three-handers. I wouldn't call it a dress watch, it's more of a sports watch, but you can get away with it as a dress watch. For a three-hander, it's really cool. So you have the silver dial, looks like it's got a bit of a sunburst effect. It's got a bit of a brush effect. Very cool. Very thin hands on the watch. Very simple though. Like I said, it's not anything too crazy, not anything too elaborate. Simple Timex logo at 12, or Timex branding rather. There's a logo at 6 that I still have yet to be able to really identify what that logo is. I'm assuming it's something to do with the designer, because they advertise it as the Giorgio Galli S1 automatic from Timex. The thing that blew me away with this watch is the case. Holy hell, the case on the Timex S1 is really, really cool. So it's a 4-part case, basically. You have the outer shell that the lugs are on, and those are open. It has like open lugs, like basically like the lugs are skeletonized of sorts, or not the lugs, but the case side is skeletonized. Inside of that, the main crux of the case is like this barrel style case that is kind of reminds me of my Sal Baltimore Founders Edition, or kind of like some of the Braemont watches as well. So you have this like internal barrel size case, very cool. Screw down exhibition case back. The rotor looks pretty nifty as well. It's using, I think, a Miyota 9015, so you get the Miyota finishing on there as well. The case back also looks cool. Like screw down case backs are usually kind of take it or leave it unless they have an engraving on them. It manages to kind of keep the style consistent because it has, engraved edges running around the outside of the case back that kind of match up with the barreling on the side of the case. The crown is the same way. The knurling on the crown has kind of the same effect. So you're getting that all throughout the watch. This thing looks incredible. This thing looks incredible. If I was in the market for a watch like this, I would probably pick this up. It's $450, more than fair in terms of what you're getting with this watch. Only 50 millimeters water resistance. Some people are going to, poo-poo that. You're not going to go diving with this watch. That's not what it's there for. Quick release bracelet. Now, the only thing that kind of missed me about this watch is I don't know why it had to ship with I think this is a rubber bracelet, if I'm not mistaken. Or I guess it's not rubber. No, it is rubber. I was right. Rubber strap. It's a cool rubber strap. Like it's got this, the one of the sides of it has like a thin cutout, and then the tail on the strap has kind of like a little silver setting inside of it that kind of locks in place on, the strip, so that instead of having a traditional keeper, kind of does that. So that looks really cool. I would have preferred to see it on leather, but of course, if you buy it, you can buy your own leather strap and just kind of toss that on there as well. I think it would look great on leather though. Yeah, just a really great looking watch. Really great looking watch. Timex is back, guys. I think Timex is back. I hope to see more of this from them, because I knew for forever people were begging them to come back out with an automatic watch or with their mechanical watch at some point. Of course, Timex been doing quartz for a long time. I know they just put out the automatic Navitimer as well. I don't remember the exact name of that watch, if it's not the Navitimer. But yeah, just a really, really stunning watch. I was super surprised to enjoy it as much as I did. AS says 41 millimeters, though. Had to be 39. Now, see, for me, 41 is like the perfect width for me. Like for me, I'll take a 41 millimeter every day of the week and twice on Sundays. For me, it's perfect. I understand why it's not perfect for everybody. What else do we have here case wise? So the case height, 11 millimeters. Awesome. It does not mention the lug to lug distance. That I'm super curious about as well. Because if the case width is 41, let me see if I can eyeball it just from looking at the pictures. Lug to lug, it looks like it might be like 48. If the renders are accurate, I think it's 48. If that's the case, even if 41 is a little big for you, I think it'll still wear pretty good. As long as it's sub 50, I think you'll be okay. says love that has the jewel bearing on the dial. Is that what that is? Is that a jewel from the movement? It's pretty interesting if that's the case, to kind of have that popping out there. Azza in the chat says it's the 1159 from Timex. It looks so cool. You know what's funny? The 1159 series, like it entered with such derision when they first announced it. I haven't seen anyone talk about the 1159 since they first announced this. We're getting off topic. Steven says that Timex is nice looking. Zelos has a sold out bronze version with the same style case, the Helmsman 2. Well, now I'm going to be looking at the Zelos Helmsman 2 so that I can check out that watch as well. I'm going to take a drink too. Real quick. Let's see here. I'm trying to look at the case sides on the Helmsman 2. Unfortunately, Zelos' website does not have any really good side view pictures. Okay. So actually, the Helmsman 2, the case on this one is actually a little bit more similar to the Roebuck Diviso that I just reviewed on the channel recently. So if you guys haven't seen that, go check that out. The Diviso is a new micro. Roebuck is a new micro brand that's coming out with their first watch soon, and that's kind of what the case on the Helmsman 2 here reminds me of. Like I said, the one on the S1 to me is very Bremont like and very like Sal Baltimore like. But just a really cool watch. I wish that I needed a watch that was like this because I would love to buy this thing. I'd also like to see it in different colors as well. I think the silver dial is a really smart first release. I'd be curious to see if they do some other variants of it. Doesn't have to be black either. Like we can have some fun with this one, especially because I know with this one too, they're going to be coming out with different colored straps to pair with it as well. So I think you could have some fun with that as well. I don't know why they didn't make sure that the straps were ready to release alongside the watch though. That's a baffling decision to me. Like you have this watch that's going to get a lot of buzz within the enthusiast community. Like you would think that you'd want those extra straps ready to go because anyone that buys this, I guarantee, would probably pick up an extra strap as well. So it's kind of befuddling that they didn't have their ducks in a row with that one. But I guess they wanted to get out the watch out before Christmas, which totally makes sense if you're trying to sell it. So guys, I know we're approaching 45 minutes. If you guys have any other questions, any other topics that you wanted to expound on a little bit, I'm happy to answer a couple more before I skedaddle. Again, we've had a couple reviews on the channel here recently, so if you've not gotten to check those out yet, highly encourage you to go back. The Ardor and Forge Rothrock, I really liked a lot. Another new micro brand that I met those guys for the first time at District Time. So definitely check out that review. And also, if you're looking at maybe a Boulder Expedition, that might be a review you want to look at first to see if that's something that you might be interested in, even though the Rothrock's not going to be here until next April. And then, like I said, the Roebuck Diviso, another watch that I enjoyed quite a bit that I reviewed a few weeks ago as well. I can tell you that my planned video is coming out soon. I plan to do a video about watch Kickstarters coming up here and probably next week. And then I really want to review the EMG Nemo, do a more full-fledged review. I did one on Watch With Us, but it was like a 5-minute review. I really want to sit down and spend some time with the Nemo, especially now that I've had it for a couple months as well. AS says, when will you have your next State of the Collection video? Probably in January. January is when I usually film those. Or it's when I have filmed them so far in the 2 years that I've been doing the channel. So you can look forward to that in January. I think the collection's actually a bit different than it was the last time we did one. There's definitely a few watches that have obviously, withstood the test of time in the collection. But there's going to be some new ones and some ones that you might be surprised are not there anymore. There's also a couple watches that I've had throughout the year that are not even going to make it into a State of the Collection because I got them this year and have sold them before they even had a chance to feature in that video as well. But yeah, January is typically when I plan on doing that. Honolulu Watch says, thoughts on local watch meetups, best experience or coolest watch that you've seen so far. So I've been super lucky. I'm a member of 2 Red Bar chapters. I'm a member of the Baltimore and DC chapters. And I've also kind of carved out like a group of friends locally who are really into this stuff as well, that we enjoy getting together occasionally and doing stuff like that as well. Any meetup you can go to is great. And if you want to see cool watches, going to Red Bar events is definitely the way to go for that. Like if you can get an introduction with your local Red Bar chapter and kind of meet up with those guys, that certainly is going to be the most eclectic variety of watches, because Red Bar attracts a very wide spectrum of folks, but all who are super just passionate about watches in general. The anecdote that I'll tell you about Red Bar, because some people have a poor perception of Red Bar. You know, they think that it's a lot of people that are, you know, kind of up their own ass about it and kind of snobbish and that sort of thing. And, you know, and it's possible in certain chapters that is the case. But in my experience, it has not been that way. And the first Red Bar meetup that I went to, there were some serious watches at this meetup and some serious watch collectors. But there was as many people that were really interested in checking out my Bulova Lunar Pilot, which is like a $500 watch, as they were checking out like a pre-Daytona Rolex chronograph that a guy there had with him as well. So that's kind of been my experience so far with Red Bar. I don't know if I can think of the coolest single watch that I've gotten to see at a meetup so far. The cool thing about going to events like that and meetups like that is that you never know what you're going to see. Like I've seen stuff that, you know, is approaching the six figures in price in watches. But for me, like, I get just as much pleasure and enjoyment, if not more so, about seeing a really obscure, like really cool looking micro brand as it is seeing, you know, like a Lang & Son, you know, at an event. I get the same enjoyment from both watches. So it's not really, you know, about the price thing. The coolest watch that I've seen so far was I think it was a Gronfeld. I don't know what model it is. Gronfeld is it's a micro brand on the opposite end of the spectrum, where like they're a super high-end Swiss brand that makes, you know, like a handful of watches a year, and every watch costs like 80 grand, and they're all, you know, completely hand finished and hand assembled and all that jazz. That's actually, if you guys watch my videos, that watch that the last shot in the intro that I've been using for the past couple of months, with that really fancy looking watch, that's a Gronfeld. And that was one of the coolest watches that I've gotten to see me of so far. I will also tell you, I've gotten more pleasure at the really intimate 3 and 4 person gatherings as I have out of the kind of Red Bar, like 20 to 30 person gathering, just because getting to just kind of talk watches and talk BS with guys and just have a very casual, laid back environment just kind of suits me better. It might shock you to learn this. I have massive social anxiety. If I'm in a crowd of people that I don't personally know, I tend to kind of be a wallflower. I tend to kind of not want to approach people, which is silly because I do a YouTube channel. Like I you know, put out videos that thousands of people see. So you'd think that would make me nervous. That doesn't make me nervous at all, because even though I'm talking to you guys, in reality, I'm talking to a camera and a microphone. Like, I don't see any of you guys in person. But going to the intimate, you know, the smaller meetups, the 3-4 person gatherings, is nice because it's generally people that I know. Conversations more free flowing. You know, we talk about other stuff besides watches as well because we actually know each other. So I tend to find more enjoyment out of those personally. But I still love going to Red Bar events, just meeting new people and just seeing a lot of cool watches and learning about a lot of cool watches as well. The Knight's Watch says, is there any good way to get into Red Bar? He, quote, applied to the LA chapter through a website and never heard anything back. I can only share how I got into Red Bar. I found Red Bar on Instagram, and in their Instagram handle for Red Bar Baltimore, at least, they have their email. So I sent them an email and I said, hey, you know, my name's Brad, and, you know, I saw you guys on there. You know, here's a little bit about me. Here's my Instagram handle. I've been, you know, collecting watches for X amount of time. I have this YouTube channel, this, that, or the other. And they got back to me through email pretty quick. Now, obviously they do some vetting because they don't want to just, you can't let anyone in there because you got to make sure that like you're not inviting someone in there that's going to come in and, you know, stick the place up and run off with $500,000 in watches. That's not a really good idea. So like I guess my advice to you would be to contact them through email Kind of just give them a quick bio of yourself. How long have you been collecting? What are some watches in your collection? Here's my Instagram handle. That way they can kind of check out your Instagram and see, yes, he does actually own watches. He's not just, trying to scout the place or anything like that. And you kind of do it that way as well. I don't think there's any official procedure, and I'm sure it's different from chapter to chapter. But that's how I did it. I reached out through email and just kind of let them know, hey, here's who I am. And they were like, cool, let's do it. Gitma says my grail would be some Oxen Jr. Swiss micro brand. Those guys are awesome. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you never get to see because it's super obscure. Like you have to know what you are looking for to find watches like that because you don't normally see them in boutiques because they're usually direct sale brands. And you also have to be somewhat wealthy because a lot of those like super high-end Swiss brands are in the like AP, Vacheron, Patek price range. But that just have a lot less notoriety, I guess you can say. But some of those watches are really amazing. Like I remember when I saw that Gronfeld for the first time, I then kind of went on a Google tour of different like small Swiss brands that make super high end stuff, and some of that stuff is just really cool. There's so much good stuff in the micro brand space, and not talking about the high end space now. I'm talking about all micro brands. Like independent is really the way to go right now. Like I'm at the point where, in all seriousness, like if I never bought another like factory direct brand for the rest of my life, I could be super happy and have a really fun watch collection just buying independents and micro brands and stuff like that. Because I think what's going on in that space right now is far more interesting. Like, Seiko's coming out with another limited edition every other week. And, Omega's going to come out with 18 different special edition Seamasters and Speedmasters that are desirable, and Hodinkee is going to have special editions of this Hamilton watch and this Oris watch and this Damasco watch and all this other stuff. But I don't know. Like I said, for me, I'm just finding more joy and more intrigue from the micro brand space in general. Like it's just like my head's being turned much more by what's going on there than anything else in the watch industry right now. And that speaks to where micro brands are right now, what a good place they're in. I think the fact that we're several years into the micro brand trend now is very helpful because now it's easier for new brands to get started because the cool thing about the watch community is that we're kind of a cottage industry and there's not a lot of trade secrets protecting. Like there aren't people that are like super guarded about their process and things like that. I typically find, especially with brand owners, they're more than happy to talk about, mistakes that they made and good factories to check out and things like that and help new brands get started, which is funny because that you think that runs against their self-interest because you're helping your competition essentially. But I don't know. Like I said, just because the people are so passionate about it, micro brands are getting off the ground a lot better than they were. Their stuff is really cool. Again, the Ardor and Forge really blew me away. And if you guys haven't watched that review, do that because there's a watch that you can get possibly as low as $350 that punches way above their weight, I think. And that's from a new company. And we're seeing a lot of that stuff as well. And then Knight's Watch says, agree with the micro brand idea. And you're excited to receive your Traska Summiteer early next year. Dude, you should be excited. I've gotten to see that watch in person. It looks amazing. The only reason I didn't get one is because I hate backing watch Kickstarters. And I'll talk about that when I do the Kickstarter video and kind of expound on the reason why that is. But yeah, I hate doing Kickstarters for watches. So I really want one. Like I'll probably end up picking up a used one at some point, or maybe even a new one when they actually come out. Tennessee Mike says, any love for Oris? So it's funny. Me and Ricardo were talking about this, I think on Bearded Time, the first episode. I do have a lot of appreciation for Oris. I think Oris is a great brand. They have a lot of watches that I really like. I think an Oris watch is actually my number one Basel pick when I did my Basel World video early this year. Here's the problem with Oris. It's not even a problem with Oris because it's not Oris's fault. It's not fair. to put this on them. Christopher Ward does everything that Oris does from a quality standpoint. Their designs are not similar, but it's kind of like, I don't know, to me, they seem similar, even though they're not similar. But Christopher Ward watches are just as good as Oris's, and they cost half the price. That's the only thing with Oris, is that the MSRP is very expensive. And I don't like buying from gray markets. Like, it's not my favorite thing to do. Like, I'll buy a used watch from a Enthusiast over a gray market watch new. But if I'm spending that money, like, do I spend $1,200 for a used Diver 65, or do I spend $950 for a brand new, C60 Trident Mark III? Like that, and for me, that's the only thing that where Oris kind of falls short, is that their pricing. And it's not even that Oris's pricing is bad, because I think Oris is in line with other watches that are in that class. So I don't think Oris is overpriced by any stretch of the imagination. Just that Christopher Ward is really good value for money. Like when you're talking, when you're talking pricing, like the fact that Christopher Ward can offer that much watch for that small price, it makes it really hard to buy anything else that's kind of in that price range. And unfortunately, for me personally, Oris is the company that suffers. That being said, if I ever have the opportunity, if I have the money and have the opportunity to get one of the big crown pointer dates, the blue one especially, at a good price, you better believe I'm getting that bad boy, because that is a fantastic watch. I love it. And I would buy that in a heartbeat if I got a good deal and I wasn't saving up for something that I really want down the road. Gidmo says, I like them all in reference to Oris, except the Oris 65. That must be their biggest mistake. Honolulu asks, any thoughts on Dan Henry? I like Dan Henry watches quite a bit. I've reviewed 2 of them on my channel. I've reviewed the 1939 and I've reviewed the 1962, if I'm not mistaken. I came very close to buying a 1964, but they sold out of the white no date super fast, so I could not get that one. My wife actually owns the 1939, so I think for what Dan Henry does for the watch that they're making, they are a fantastic company to check out. I think the pricing on them is great compared to what you get. The only thing with Dan Henry watches that are a little bit of a sticking point, and this is a me personally thing, not a wide complaint. Their watches, the ones that I like the best, are just a shade too small for me. Like, I really like the 1964, but it's a 38 millimeter chronograph, and it looks minuscule on my wrist. Like, I could probably pull it off if I really wanted to, but I've got really big wrists, and so the 1964 does not work for me. I thought the 1962 might be a little bit better, but like I said, I didn't get a chance to get the one that I really wanted. So I ended up passing on it completely. If that comes my way again at some point, I may pick one up, maybe because I don't have a chronograph in the collection right now, and that's kind of one that I had my eye on. But I think Dan Henry's a great company, and I think you should definitely check them out if you've not ever seen their stuff. Tennessee Mike says he acquired the blue Oris pointer date from Joma Shop. Very happy. Looked hard at Christopher Ward before purchasing. And that's the thing. Like, there's some people that really don't care for Christopher Ward. I totally understand that. I think the ginned up controversy about the logo is a little bit overdone. But again, you like what you like. I can't hold that against anybody. And I think for them, like, they are 2 companies that do very similar things. Both make great watches, but yeah, the pointer date, that for me, that's the biggest, that's my favorite attainable Oris. My favorite Oris in general is the Big Crown Pro Pilot. Big Crown Pro Pilot World Timer. It's the Big Crown Pro Pilot that actually has the subdial that has the actual time layout for the second time zone instead of having like a GMT hand. But those are, I think, limited edition, and I think they're between $3,000 and $4,000 for even a used one. So it's not something that I really have in my plans at any point to pick up. So we are just about at an hour, so I think we're going to wrap it up. so far, this has been the most successful Q&A that we've done in terms of viewers. So you guys that were in the chat for this one live, thank you so much. It's really cool to see and really encouraging to see that these seem to get more and more people watching them every single time. So again, you guys, especially those of you that were here the whole time, sticking with us, feeding, giving questions and chatting up in there. Again, thank you guys so much. I really enjoy doing these with you guys, and the more folks we get in, the merrier, because you guys usually end up asking better questions and bringing up better topics that I get to think of beforehand. So again, super thank you to the chat. If you guys are watching this later on YouTube, I do try to do these once a month, so keep your eye out for them. When I do them, it's always Saturday. I try to do them Saturday nights at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, so you guys can kind of see that. I usually put the post up a couple hours beforehand as well. And if you don't get a chance to be in the live stream, I do usually put out a call for questions on Instagram the morning before. So go to Instagram, follow me at Budding Watch Enthusiast. And if you go to my stories, you can see that when I do ask for questions, and you can submit questions and I'll read them on the show. Flippin' Zippo coming in the chat at the last minute, man. I'm glad you at least made it in this time, because I know you've been telling me that the past couple times you've been meaning to come in and you keep missing it. But yes, you did pretty much miss the entire show, unfortunately, because you're catching me at the hour mark when I'm wrapping up. But you get to go back and watch the whole thing again, and then you can comment in the regular YouTube comments, and I'll see it down there, and I'll get to interact with you there. And it's the same bat time, same bat channel, whenever we do it. So like I said, it is what it is. So again, chat, thank you so much for sticking around. Everyone watching this, whether you're watching it live, whether you're watching it later on YouTube, thank you for checking it out. Again, go over to the Watch For This channel, subscribe there, check out Bearded Time. The first 2 episodes have been a lot of fun. Me and Ricardo are having a really good time doing that show. And that's it for this live stream. So thanks again, guys. And I will see you all the next time.